Another rainy, miserable day in Arkansas. It's just the rain. It's rained ever since the end of last summer, about the middle of the fall. It just rains and rains and rains. It's just nonstop. It's incredible. Although it is helping the old radishes pretty good. They're starting to really pop up nice. Anyway, today we're going to do a little something different, guys. Since I still have not got my rotors in, and they won't be here until the first week of May unless something happens, you know, and they all just magically appear one day. But thanks to our good subscriber, George H., we have this video today. Those of you who have been with this series in the beginning might remember these wires that they've been hanging ever since I got the car. And they have these two brackets, and the tape's coming off of them. Whoever did the transmission work on this car and the engine work never bothered to hook them back up. Never bothered to connect them where they're secure. And of course they never bothered to tape things up and make it look halfway decent and kind of protect it. Well, that's all going to change because we're going to do it and we're going to run it righteously the way it's supposed to be run. Right now it comes up and plugs in and it comes up along the top here and then runs on over down to here and where it's supposed to go that way. Well, that's not the way it's supposed to go. Yeah, I knew it wasn't the way it was supposed to go, but I didn't know how. The manuals I have, they're not explicit on how that's done. So, our good subscriber George H. up there in Michigan, you know, he's for those of you who may not remember, he's the one that's been working on his T-Bird for 42 years. You know, I call him the king of patience, was it? The legend, the patience legend. And he is a patience legend, you know. So I contacted him. He did an outstanding, terrific job on restoration of the engine compartment on his car, on his Thunderbird. So I contacted him. He had offered me some help quite a while ago, and I wrote him back. I said, George, I need your help. Would you please show me how these wires are supposed to be connected, where they're supposed to be connected, and how they're supposed to be run? I also asked him a couple more questions, which we'll cover at, you know, before the end of the video. He sent me a bunch of photographs back, and we now know how it's going to be done. Or I say I do, and the rest of you are going to know also. The first thing we're going to do is remove these old rusty clips, and we're going to clean them up. We're going to paint them, derust them, and all that. You know how I am. You know, I'm not putting this kind of junk back on the car. And then while it's derusting, I'll go ahead and tape up these wires, inspecting them as I go to make sure there's nothing busted or frayed or anything. They look pretty good right now, except right here. This plug is unplugged. And let's get that done. Now, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and derust these babies. And some of you might say, well, why bother? Why don't you put some, you know, large plastic ones down there, or, you know, nylon, instead of these old rusty metal ones? Well, there's a reason these things are metal. These are attached to the engine itself, and the wire bundles go through. Now this one here, see, now this is a plastic one. It is original to the car, and it's removed from, I think it's good shape. Yeah, it's in good shape. This one here is removed from the engine. It's not anywhere close. The engine gets hot. A plastic one like this would dry out, crack, and split in no time, and it just wouldn't last. Whereas the metal ones, that's why these are metal, because they don't do that. Now, of course, the trade-off is they do get rusty after a while. I mean, it didn't take long to rust these. Maybe 54 years? Now, this one will have to be straightened out. I'll put it in the vise and straighten it out. I'll just, you know, scrunch the vise together and it'll flatten it right out. That's our lower one. And this upper one, you can notice that the one corner's cut off. There's a reason for that. I'll show you that after we get ready to put it back on the car. What I've decided to do with these wire clamps, they're pretty thin. I don't really want to soak them in vinegar. They may wind up eating the entire thing away. I don't know. So soaking them for a day or two, that may not be the best idea. So what I've decided to do is just throw them in a cup and pour some navel jelly over the top. And then stir it around in there. Good thing about navel jelly, whatever's left I can pour back in the bottle. Believe it or not, you can do that. Anyway, so what if it has a little bit of rust in it? It won't make any difference, okay? So I'm just going to let it set in here. I might put a little bit more than that in there, because I want it to be covered. I'll let it set for, I don't know, maybe till this afternoon. Then we'll take them out. I'll come out every once in a while and stir them and make sure they're good, but I think that might just do the trick. I'll flatten these out. I don't want them to be up like that. You want them flat. all the way down, covered with the nail jelly, like that. It's also a good idea to cover them up. Apparently, I'm kind of glad this wire problem popped up because it gave me a chance to get down in here and take a look at the throttle, the gas pedal linkage. Apparently this linkage is worn out right here or something. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but the gas pedal linkage was sagging down. So rather than take it out and weld the hole up or repair it or do it the right way, what somebody did was, to keep it from sagging, they took a piece of wire and they loosened up this bolt head on the bracket, and then they ran a piece of wire, you can see it right there, down underneath this mechanism here, and then they wrapped the wire, they ran it through a hole in the bracket. There's a hole here, and then they fastened a nut to this side right here, and that supported it upward. I tell you what, it's kind of creative when you think about it, but I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. See, now there's a hole over there, see, and the same kind of holes over here, and they used that hole to run that wire through and then just put a nut on there. And that's what you call your backyard shade tree mechanic repair job. We're going to take that off and find out what happens. Man, look how gloomy it's beginning to get. You'd think this is, dusk or dawn, and it's not. It's not even 12 noon yet. It's going to get darker. Unfortunately, it makes it difficult to see in the garage. I cannot wait to get this car moved out so I can call up the guys that wired my shop over there. They're going to come out and I'm going to have them wire this whole garage. Meanwhile, we have to work in partial darkness. I'll do my best to make sure you see everything. Alright, that mess is off. I've still got another bolt holding it on over there though. You can see that bolt right there. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, she's pretty loose. She's causing the linkage to go back and forth. It's not bad, but I don't want that. We're going to have to tighten it up. This shaft right here, there's apparently a shaft that goes all the way through this tube, which in turn is attached to this linkage over here. That goes up to the carb linkage, so this will have to be disconnected. I'll have to go in the car and disconnect it there, or make sure that it's clear so I can pull it on through the firewall. Then we'll get it out and take a closer look at it. That'll give me a lot more room to work on this wiring anyway, because the wiring, or the way it is right now, it comes up through here. That's not the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to come up on the other side of this bracket. It comes up because it goes all the way over to here. And I can get this. This is really, they really screwed this mess up. It's interesting. Anything that's been touched on this car by someone in the past has been screwed up. Nothing has been done right. Not one thing. We're going to bring it up between the engine and the this bracket that's wobbling around here, and we're going to fasten that first clip right there on that bolt. We're going to remove the bolt, put that first wire clip, and that keeps it from getting tangled up into this mess, okay? And then we're going to bring it on across, and then the second clip will hook to the bolt on the corner of the valve cover. You see where am I back here? Yeah, there's a bolt in the rear. The second clip will go here. So those two clips that I'm de-rusting are pretty close together, but they keep the wires from getting tangled up into the linkage. Throttle linkage. So let's keep working on that throttle linkage. I want to get that thing out of there. That rod goes through the firewall and goes down, and it positions itself underneath the gas pedal. It's not connected to the gas pedal. The gas pedal just, the rod goes in and kind of comes up, and then the gas pedal just kind of sits on top of it. So, initially it looks like it would be pretty easy once I get the bracket loose and disconnect all this linkage up here. It would be easy to worm on through, but I don't think, nothing on this car is that easy ever, so wish me luck. She is loose, and this is the top of the rod that connects up here. I don't think I'm going to be able to get it out unless this downshift rod here, I'm going to have to disconnect it also from this. I'll either have to disconnect this entire bracket, or just disconnect the rod. I don't think she wants to clear there. She's moving out pretty close, but I don't know. I think I better get that out of the way. We still don't have enough swing room, so it's gonna, I think if I pull the grommet out here that goes through the firewall, we'll get the swing room we need. This is gives us quite a bit of movement now. Let me wrestle it around a little while longer. Well, that did it. Just moved the grommet out of the way. I may have to search around the Max Thunderbird and see if they have new grommets for this. I doubt it, but we'll see. Anyway, this is the part that goes through the firewall and goes up underneath your gas pedal. Your gas pedal rides on this nylon bushing here. Okay? This is supposed to go like that because when the gas pedal pushes down, it goes from a large rod to a flat one, and then that bushing is put on there. It's pretty mangy. It'll need to be cleaned up, but it is loose. I'll have to do something about that. I'm not exactly certain what, but you can't have a lot of play in the linkage. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it's still not cool. We'll take a better look at it after we get it cleaned up. Right now, let's get back to the wiring. Unfortunately, when I got rid of all that old black electrical tape, I found that the plug, that's similar to this one right here, had been just it had come off at one time or something. They just twisted the wires together and wrapped some electrical tape around it, and they never even insulated one of the wires from the other. So this here was touching that one over there. I don't know what they were expecting with something like that. This is our neutral safety switch. It mounts on the driver's side of the transmission, and this is the wiring that we're messing with right now. This plug here is the one that's been cut off, and actually the entire wire is shorter than it should be. I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is not our 390 engine, but the transmission is about the same. Down here underneath all that grease, you can see that neutral safety switch right there. It's mounted right here. Bolt on the bottom, bolt on the top. Pretty simple arrangement. And then the wire comes out and it runs up, and it's supposed to connect right here with one of those clamps that I'm derusting. It's supposed to connect right here, and then it runs from there on our car. This one, it runs back down this way. That's, I don't know if it just got them hanging. I don't know what the deal is on that. Don't care. On our car, it'll go through the clamp up here, and another one of those clamps will be mounted right here on the corner of the valve cover, and then from there it'll run along the top of the valve cover all the way over to where it'll come down the other end. Okay, our problem currently is this wire is supposed to at least go through this clamp and a couple of inches down the valve cover, and then another wire comes up and connects to it. Unfortunately, ours is not long enough. It's only about this long right here. It won't even reach it up to the valve cover, so I'm going to have to do something about that. One of the photographs that was supplied to me by our good buddy up there in Michigan, George H. He's been very, very cooperative. This is the back, this is the bell housing right here. This is the back of the engine. And I got looking at it, you know, of all the pictures, this one here, eventually I went back to it and I said, there's something odd here. Because this is the bracket on the firewall that supports the gas pedal linkage. And I'm thinking, you know, what? I don't have this right here, this thing. What is that? And I don't have this little round ball here either. So I'm wondering, what could that be? So I contacted George and I said, hey buddy, can you tell me what that is? You know, at first I thought it was a heat shield of some kind. I don't know. I didn't know. Well, guess what it turned out to be? It turned out to be this throttle stop, or I call it a throttle stop bracket, but it's actually a throttle stop. They have them for a C6 transmission and I think a Cruise-O-Matic. Our transmission is a C6. So let's see how this throttle stop business works. The throttle stop bolts to the, or fastens to the bolts on the bell housing. There's one here, and then the other one, it just comes down across. This is, again, this is our throttle linkage. It comes down here and then it goes down below and it fastens to another bolt And so it goes between the two bolts on the bell housing. And what happens is this thing here rotates when you push the gas pedal down. This thing here rotates this way and that way, and there is this rubber thing here is a rubber stop. That round thing is a rubber stop that's fastened to this. There's a plate right here that goes around this shaft, but it also goes down a little bit far enough to get this rubber bumper in there. So what happens is when you push the gas pedal, it comes around like that, and it will stop by hitting this throttle stop right here. This rubber bumper will. And I shall show. And an interesting thing, I finally realized something. So what's the big discovery? Well, I'm fixing to tell you. Right here, this is the linkage for the throttle, or for the gas pedal linkage. And this is a rubber bumper down there that's been flattened out completely. I'm going to have to replace it with another one. But this one has a screw that goes through, and there's a nut on the other side. This thing is supposed to stick out. You saw it in the picture. Well, what happened here was, this thing being flat, when they put this thing back together on the firewall, or they put the engine in, or somehow they discovered that this bumper was too flat to operate. So what they, it's supposed to hit that throttle stop, okay? The bumper comes forward like this, supposed to hit the throttle stop, like so. Let me make it, see? It's, let me see if I can get it to work, like so. Anyway, the throttle stop would be right here in front of it, okay? So, what did they do? They took one of these here. And this, I was thinking it was there to hold up, the bar down here and keep it from, because it felt kind of loose to me. But apparently that's not the case. Or it might be. That's still a mystery. That mystery's still up in the air. What they did was they ran this a wire through that hole right there with the nut on the end, and then took the other end of the wire, wrapped it around this bolt. So it acted as the throttle stop. That's exactly what happened here. It couldn't go because the bolt only let it go so far. There, the nut on the wire and the length of the wire. So that's what they did, all right? It had nothing to do with the actual support. Now, is that cool or not? Of course, now the question is, this thing here is going to be mounted on the firewall. And this thing here, what makes this thing go this way and that way? Because the entire thing is independent from the throttle arms, or the gas pedal arm. I don't get that. What would possibly make it go back and forth to where the bumper would hit that throttle stop? I don't quite get that. I'm going to have to study that a little more, and I'll get back to you on that probably in the next video. I'll tell you what, this video is beginning to get a little long. I'm trying to keep them a little shorter. Sometimes I don't quite make it, but this is what our wires now look like. I extended them all by 4 inches, and they've all been wrapped all the way down like they were originally. Now this will go through that clamp down there, and it'll come across, and it'll have plenty of length. If I can get a little focus in here, there we go. It'll have plenty of length to come up alongside our valve cover, like so. So that's good to go. All I soldered them up and put a heat shrink on each individual wire, and then heat shrink the outside, and then tape the outside. They're in perfect condition. So we'll pick up on the rest of this mess. I have to pick up a few things. I've got to get some clamps downtown for along here. All of these holes you see here, I may have to wind up drilling new holes. I don't know. I'm going to try to get bolt. These were originally where the plastic clamps were, here and here. And again, thanks to, and up here, and again, thanks to our good buddy George H. He really came through for me on this, and I appreciate it. So thanks, George. And until next time, this is John. There is one more thing I better cover, though, before we end this video completely. We're back to these bearing races we put in. By the way, you guys are a bunch of comedians. I want you to know that. Anyway, one of our good subscribers, he said there's a second way you can put these things in. You take your hub and put it in the oven. First of all, you put your race in the freezer. overnight in the refrigerator freezer overnight in a bag so it doesn't get moisture on it. Let it sit there and freeze all night long. The next day, heat up the hub to 200 degrees in the wife's oven or some other way. And then if you quick take this thing out of the freezer, and then take this out of the stove, the race will drop right down in there all the way to the bottom all by itself. You won't have to tap, okay?